just because you're not thinking about it doesn't mean that you're not being affected by it.
Welcome to the Council of Dudes podcast. I'm your host, Vinny Brusco. I am a father, a husband, the founder of Agora Social Club, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a certified life coach, and a facilitator of the Council of Dudes men's group. This podcast is here to help you tap into and follow your golden thread, that feeling that pulls you forward to become the best version of yourself. If you're someone who's into personal development and self-help and is looking to live a life of more alignment, then this is the podcast for you. Subscribe to the channel, click the notification button, and follow along on the journey of the show.
Hey, this is Rafael from Recap Wellness. Thanks for checking out the Council of Dudes podcast.
And here we go.
What's up, man?
Not much, man. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. We've been talking about it for a little while now, and I'm glad we're able to bring it to light. Mm-hmm. Before we get started, explain what you do.
Okay. So, in short, my job is to get your brain to feel safe. And I do that in many different ways. One of the first things that I normally start with my clients is their limbic system, to make sure that they're not stuck in a fight or flight state. And most people will get stuck in a fight or flight state due to some type of unresolved trauma or some type of internal conflict. Mm. So that's normally how I would start. And then from there, I would go on depending on what's going on with them.
Just pull the mic in a little bit closer to you if you can. If not, then you just lean in a little bit more. Okay, I was having some back issues, and we were at jiu-jitsu, and you put my feet on these little these little pads on the bottom of my feet, mm-hmm. and you gave me this test of movement, and then you said something that resonated with me, plucked on it perfectly, and you said your brain doesn't feel safe in space.
Yep.
And that hit me in such a way that I was like, that's exactly what's going on right now. I think that there was a lot of, like I was saying to at that time, I was like, I just feel like I'm shot right now. And you had done this process of, and you could explain exactly what that is, but the articulation of your brain does not feel safe in space completely nailed how I was feeling on a multitude of levels.
Mm-hmm. So what basically was going on was that I checked if you had some type of postural asymmetries. So I quickly checked to see, where your shoulder height was, where your hip height was. And from what I recall, I believe you had your left shoulder higher and your left hip higher. I think that's might have been what we saw. And I think, did I massage your jaw?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so I basically did a little bit of a jaw massage, and I looked at your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Where you did the whole...
Exactly. Yep. And then I looked at your feet. I'm pretty sure I did that as well. So basically what that is that your sensory system meaning like the skin of your feet, your eyes, your eye musculature, as well as your vestibular system, tells your body where it is in space. And if that's a little bit skewed, if let's take you have an eye muscle that's a little bit tighter than the rest, and the eye's 1 millimeter off, and when that happens, is you're going to start your brain's understanding of where it is in space is going to be faulty. So you'll develop, let's say, one shoulder a little bit higher, one hip a little bit higher. And in the beginning, you may not really notice it. You may be like, just going about your day, but you fast forward a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, or whatever it may be. All of a sudden it's like, hey, I don't know why I have this back pain. I wasn't in an accident. I'm relatively healthy. And then you have this chronic back pain. So my job is to figure out, like, okay, let me check your sensory system. Let's make sure that that's online correctly, or at least that your brain is processing that information correctly. And if it's not, then there's certain techniques that I can use to kind of get everything back online.
How did you get into doing this?
So I was a personal trainer, and we're going back 25 years ago. and I was playing soccer and I hurt my knee. And I was desperate. I was going to regular PT for about 6 months and nothing was helping. I couldn't bend my knee and it was so uncomfortable. And I remember a buddy of mine was learning a technique called muscle activation techniques. And he asked me, he was like, hey, can I use you to practice, so that I can learn? And I was like, sure, no problem. So he worked on me for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then he gave me these really simple isometric exercises to do. And I kid you not, about 2 weeks later, I was playing soccer again, like if nothing had happened. And that really blew my mind. And after that experience, I went out and I learned that technique. And then from there, I started finding, hey, you know what? There's some holes to this technique. And it got me on a journey. It was like, hey, what else can I learn? And what else can I learn? And what else can I learn? And that's how I kind of stumbled upon all these different techniques. I went out to Europe. I did an internship in Europe. I learned something called auricular therapy, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, a little bit later. But in auricular therapy, what it is, it's European ear acupuncture. So it's not like your traditional Eastern acupuncture, which is based on meridians and energy, which is all good and great. Auricular therapy, European acupuncture, it's based on neurology. So I know if I stimulate a certain part of your ear, I'm going to get a response. Pretty immediate in most cases.
What kind? Give me an example of something you would do, and so I guess one is, are all the responses for those particular parts of the ear the same? And give me an example of a part of the ear that you would stimulate, and then what's the response?
So, I think this one's a really simple one, which maybe some of your listeners know about, is let's say you have lower back pain. And if I stimulate a part of your ear just with a little bit of pressure, that lower back pain may diminish or go away. It could be temporary in some cases. Really depends on what's going on. But that's, it's pretty much ear reflexology in that case. Now, I also use it to process emotional traumas. So there's parts of the ear that will represent certain areas of the brain. So let's say I have somebody come in and they'll say to me, hey, I have this lower back pain and it's been going on for 6 months, a year, whatever it may be. And I'll check their postural asymmetries. I'll see, all these asymmetries going on. But before I address the sensory system, I ask them, hey, before this pain started, what was going on in your life? So they'll say to me, I got divorced. I had a bad breakup. I lost my job. Whatever it may be. I got into an altercation. I was assaulted. And what happens is I'll process that emotional trauma for them, and then I'll recheck these asymmetries. And many times, I would say about 70% of the time, I'll see the asymmetries even out, and the pain will either completely go away or significantly decrease. Now, that doesn't always happen. It's about 70% of the time.
And so obviously their body's stuck in that time that something happened, right? That's that trauma. And there's big P, little t, all these different, but nonetheless, trauma's trauma, and people's experience is all relative and relevant. So they're emotionally kind of frozen in that state. And then you are doing something to the ear that's going to correlate or correspond to that part of the brain that releases that trauma.
So what happens is people can get stuck. And my job when I'm using these points in the ear is basically to unstuck it.
Yeah.
To get the information to flow from one side of the hemisphere to the other side of the hemisphere. So, for example, have you ever heard of somebody saying, hey, they experience some type of trauma, but they can't express it.
Sure.
They're kind of stuck. It's because they can't reach that area of the brain. That's why they can't verbalize it. So once you kind of get it unstuck, once the information starts transferring from one hemisphere to the other side of the hemisphere, all of a sudden now they can talk about it. Because you're kind of letting that information be processed.
Do certain traumas, is there a spot on the body that the trauma shows up the most? Is it usually like the back or the shoulders, or?
It really depends. What I found is that, and I'm sure other people have found this as well, is that if there's some type of sexual assaults, usually it's around the groin area. If it's somebody that, maybe was strangled or whatever it may be, they can feel it in their throats. Most common places that I see people store this in their body would be like on their chest, their throat, their stomach, their neck, their back. The jaw is extremely common.
Why?
Usually when somebody's like they'll say to me, I feel it in my jaw, it's because they're clenching. And it's usually they're angry. They're angry about something. So I've had clients come to see me and be like, hey, I didn't even realize that I was clenching until I was at work one day and I was so stressed out that I didn't even realize that half my tooth had fallen out because they were clenching so hard during their day.
Whoa. Wow. Is it more prevalent in that case for men or women?
I would say the anger, probably more men.
Yeah.
Although I do see sometimes with women, but usually the anger is more with men.
So you start diving into this work, and then where does it go from there? How do you kind of branch off into going from, injured knee to recovery to now we're diving into trauma therapy? And because that's obviously a very heavy thing to take on from any perspective, right? Whether you're the client or the practitioner, right? You're taking on a lot there. So how did you get into like the trauma work?
So I did an internship in Europe, in Denmark. And I'll never forget this, was that my job was basically to walk the client out, the patient out. And it was an auricular therapy internship. So I was there, and all of a sudden I started seeing all these people come in, and they would start off with saying, hey, what's going on? Everything okay? Oh, I experienced this. I was assaulted, blah, blah, blah. All these different scenarios. But the one that really stuck out to me was that there's this young lady who was maybe 22, 23 years old. And she was, she got on the table, and immediately when she got on the table, she just started crying. And she told the practitioner was that all her life, she had to go to the psych ward to visit her father. I think it was like once a week or once every other week or something like that. And that visiting her father in a padded room, throughout her whole childhood. And she basically just had a nervous breakdown right there on the table. And I see the practitioner all of a sudden take out this little light and shine it on a point on her ear. And within 3-4 minutes, all of that crying, all of that shaking just kind of just went away. And while the session was over or whatever, I was walking her out, and I say to her, I was just like, hey, how are you feeling? She was like, I feel at peace. I feel fine. I feel neutral. I feel okay. And I look at her and I say, no, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, no bullshit.
Yeah, like no, seriously.
Don't bullshit me here.
Yeah, like seriously, how do you feel? It's like, no, I'm serious. Like I feel at peace. I feel okay. And that moment right there, I was just like, huh, this is really, really interesting. And that's when it kind of just dawned on me. It's just, this type of auricular therapy is done through light. And that's when it dawned on me. I was just like, man, there's something to this.
Right.
If you would have asked me this before this experience, say, hey, can shining a light in your eyes or shining a light on your ear, you'll get these type of responses. I was like, come on, man, stop fucking around. Seriously?
Yeah.
I'd be like, come on, no way. And then I saw a few more people, same type of results. And then when I came back to the States, I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I bought the equipment. I learned how to do the technique. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. And I had my clients come in, people that were coming in for chronic pain, and I was checking their sensory system. I was doing all that stuff. And I asked them, I was like, hey, do you want to try something? And they were like, sure, I'll try anything, whatever. So I was like, okay, cool. And with every single person that I did it with, I got results. And I was just blown away to the point that I started posting some of these results online on social media. And I was contacted by somebody in Portugal to help them learn this technique. So they flew me out to Portugal to work on like 20 something people. On every single person that I worked on, I got the results. And till this day, I'm still blown away by that type of work, by the trauma processing. I've seen people who've been, assaulted. I've seen people who have seen their sibling murdered in front of them. There's a good friend of mine who he had to go identify his brother at the morgue, and everybody has the same results in a sense of, it's not like they're happy about what happened. It's a sense of neutrality. It's a sense of like, this is part of my past and it's no longer present. It doesn't define them anymore. And I think that's what's really amazing about it.
If you build, you will come.
The point is, don't lose your dinosaur.
What is actually happening though on the neurological level? Because on the outside, you're seeing put a light to the ear. We did, and you brought some stuff that we can kind of discuss, but you and I did a session with different shades of glasses, which I want to dive into. And like I said, we have a couple here that we could discuss, but what is actually happening on the neurological level other than it's just communicating better?
So what's happening is I'm stimulating a point of the ear that represents the limbic system. And when I'm stimulating that point, there is a transfer of information from one hemisphere to the other hemisphere. Now, again, when you experience a trauma, it gets stuck. And in order to process it, it needs to go to the other hemisphere. Once it's processed, all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm no longer stuck there. It's a sense of, again, neutrality. It just calms everything down. And those results are permanent. It's not something that is like, okay, we process it and then you have to come back a day later, or a week later, or a month later. No. If, for example, let's say we see a car accident right now and I process that trauma for you. It's not like you're going to say to me a month later, hey, that trauma from watching that car accident, it's back. No, like once it's done, it is done. It's not coming back.
So how can someone process a trauma themselves? Other than, like, obviously you can go to a therapist or psychiatrist. How can someone process a trauma internally? Because those are talk therapies, and that also opens up the idea of reliving the trauma, right? Opening it back up and kind of now facing it with a new lens. How can someone process the trauma on their own internally?
So there are a few techniques. Obviously, meditation is one of them. Meditation is a great one. If you can't see somebody like myself, I mean, there's great techniques out there. There's a technique called brain spotting. There's another one called EMDR. But all those, EMDR is great. It's probably one of the first ones that came out with this type of.
Explain I know what EMDR is, but explain what EMDR is.
So EMDR is basically eye movements. It could be done with eye movements or with like probes in your hand. And so one probe will light up on one hand, then it lights up on the other hand. And it's just back and forth, back and forth. And the whole theory behind that is because it's stimulating one hemisphere, the other hemisphere, one hemisphere, the other hemisphere. So keep in mind, your right hand is controlled by your left hemisphere. Your left hand is controlled by your right hemisphere. So that constant stimulation of back and forth it's processing that information. So EMDR is amazing. It's great. The only thing that I could say about EMDR is that it can take, maybe a full session, maybe multiple sessions to process a trauma. But when you do it with light therapy, it will take 5 minutes to process a trauma. Like I could literally process 3 to 5 traumas within a session, opposed to other techniques will take, it could take a little bit longer.
Now, do a lot of people realize that they have this pent-up trauma that has been released, or is it like groundbreaking to them, or is it kind of known in somewhere that they have this unprocessed trauma?
So the thing about trauma is like traumas don't come back. It's not like you're constantly thinking about them.
Right.
Like, oh, I remember that my father used to beat me or beat my mom or whatever it may is. You might have blocked that out.
Sure.
But just because you block that out does not mean that you're not triggered anymore. So they'll come back as triggers.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I was explaining this to somebody earlier that, maybe you're not constantly thinking about it, but somebody cuts you off and all of a sudden you're like, this motherfucker, how could he do this? And you just get triggered for any little thing. And again, just because you're not thinking about it doesn't mean that you're not being affected by it.
Yeah. I think it's important to also kind of reverse engineer and go deeper within yourself. I mean, sensory deprivation tank has been the vehicle for me in a lot of ways with that, but really sitting in that discomfort, or having that guy cut you off and then go, that motherfucker, and then ask the question, like, where's that coming from? Right? Like,
Exactly.
What is that about? Because that is maybe an unhealthy way of realizing this moment, and then now peeling back the onion and going back to the layers, and then all of a sudden you land at a place that you're like, how did I even get here? Like, how did that car, right, all of a sudden make all these connections subconsciously to this event that happened at this age and this moment, and it's all kind of just these constant blips that becomes connect the dots.
I mean, it's sometimes can be so complicated in a sense. I remember I had this client come in once, and one of the techniques that I used to figure out what trauma to process is they'll say to me, I have all these traumas, I don't know what to do. I'll have them just focus on what type of visceral sensations they receive when thinking about whatever it may be that's upsetting them. Okay. So let's say you'll say to me, hey, I'm having a really bad work week, and I feel it all in my gut. So instead of focusing on your work week, I'll have you focus on your gut, and I'll have you close your eyes, and we'll do something kind of similar to hypnosis, and we'll kind of go back in time, and we're kind of talking to your subconscious mind to bring forward the first time that you felt those sensations in your stomach. And it takes a little bit of time. It takes, obviously patience, because you really need to relax and allow whatever wants to float up.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, let me go back to that story of that client. For this person, the image that popped up was that when he was like 2 or 3 years old, his father was holding him on his shoulders going down the stairs. And to anybody else, that's like, how is that traumatic? That's not traumatic. And when he thought about it, it was like, how is this traumatic? How could this be the cause of why I feel this in my gut? Every time I feel upset, I'm feeling like these butterflies in my gut. Even though when you're thinking about it or when you hear it, you're like, that's not traumatic. The brain registered it at 2-3 years old as a traumatic event. Okay, because imagine you're so smaller.
Sure.
You're so small. Yeah. You're on your father's shoulders and you're running down the stairs.
Right.
Right. So maybe you're screaming and laughing, whatever, but your brain is registering as that, like, oh my God.
And as a parent, I mean, especially with social media now, you see all the parenting skills, and I do my best to lean into like, okay, be a dad like this and be a dad like that. But then, the morning routine starts. I'm like, just get in the car, everybody, just stop. Right. And as a parent, you don't know, and I jokingly say this kind of often, like, no matter what, you're going to fuck up your kids. Like, no matter what. So you have to kind of disassociate that you're going to be this perfect parent that's going to give them this amazing, like, it's going to happen. You're going to mess up your kids in some way, shape, or form. They're going to come and see you over something that you did. And it's hard to navigate that, because obviously as a parent, you want to do your best for most parents, they want to do their best to be the best parent they can. But then there's this human side of you that's just inevitably going to do something as innocent as running down the flight of stairs with them on the shoulders. As innocent as that is, it's going to do something to someone and you don't know what's going on internally.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard as a parent. It's hard as just a human walking around to know that you're constantly in this danger assessment mode, and then the slightest thing can just get locked into you, and all of a sudden that can create a completely different reality for you.
Well, I think that's when you have to, at least the parents, again, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. This is just my opinion. I think it's really when it comes into that you really need to start teaching your kids how they can regulate themselves. One thing that I do with my daughter, and so does my partner, is that when we see that she's a little bit frustrated or she's getting a little bit upset, we try to just breathe in and out with her. And then she starts mimicking us. And all of a sudden, that little tantrum or whatever it is that was going on, she kind of snaps out of it. So I think, that might be something that one can try.
Yeah. And then just also regulating your own, like anytime you're in a state of,
Absolutely.
right? Like how important is breathing in this process?
It's huge. It's huge, because breathing, especially breathing through your nose, it's going to help you get out of that sympathetic state, get you into that parasympathetic state, or that kind of rest and digest state.
Yeah. You also are a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is where we met originally. And you said something to me that I really didn't think about until you said it, another nugget that you've planted in my head. And whether it be CrossFit or working out or jiu-jitsu, you said it, you're still stressing your body. Like a lot of people, especially in the fitness world, think of it as a stress release, right? And there is a stress release component to working out, whatever modality you're doing. But there also is something that's stressful, right, happening to the body. So how does working out come into play with all this? Because you want to de-stress, but at the same time, you're stressing your body.
So I one of the examples that I use with my clients is think about, let's say you have a bucket, okay? And in that bucket, at the end of the bucket, there's a valve. And within that bucket, you have all of these types of stresses. You've got emotional stress, you've got physical stress, you got nutritional stress, you got environmental stress, you have all of these different types of stresses. And sometimes that valve can get clogged. So my job is to eliminate some of that emotional stress and some of that physical stress. So sometimes, again, let's say you're having a bad work week and that bucket is over full, and then you go out there and you go crazy on the jiu-jitsu mats, and maybe temporarily you get that endorphin hit, but then also it's like, oh, my back hurts, or my neck hurts now, and you probably overfilled that bucket, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I remember it was not that long ago I was talking to somebody and I said, yeah, but the shit that I do to de-stress isn't working anymore. Because like the bucket in your comparison was overfilled, right? And if you're not releasing it in these healthier ways, right, which is actually handling and pouring out some of the bucket, it doesn't matter what you're doing, those things tend to stop working at some point.
Yeah.
So you mentioned breath work. What else can people do? Breathing, regulating yourself. What else can people do to kind of get themselves back online on their own?
So if they're having a bad day, and I sometimes recommend this to clients, is just what, we could do it right now together.
All right.
And let's say you're having something happen at work and you're really upset about it. What I want you to do is you're going to take your hand,
all right,
and you're going to cover one eye completely, okay? And you're not going to push on it, okay? You have to make sure you don't push on your eye, but you cover all of the light. So you,
Am my eye open or closed?
eyes open.
Okay.
Eyes stay open. You cover all the light, and then you're going to let go, and then you're going to do it on the other side.
All right.
So you're just going to kind of go back and forth. And all I want you to do right now, Vinny, is just focus on whatever it is that made you upset today. So we're going to do that. Let's do that for about a minute. And then I want you to tell me if that, whatever it was that was making you upset, if it's a little bit less charged now.
Is there a certain cadence I need?
No, it just doesn't matter. Whatever feels comfortable for you right now. When I do this online with clients, there is a certain cadence that I use. But for right now, don't worry about it.
Where are we at right now?
Okay, good. Relax. Where is the how charged? I mean, I didn't ask you how emotionally charged you were to begin with.
Sure.
But how much were you charged when we started this?
Not very charged.
Well,
Not very
if
charged.
we were
But I will say the one thing that when you said the thing that annoyed me or frustrated me today, and this is not bullshitting, it doesn't seem as relevant.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course not. So
What's happening there?
So what's happening there, again, it's about the hemispheres, okay? So when I cover one eye, it's basically blocking light to coming. Let me backtrack a little bit. Your eyes are an extension of your brain, okay? When you're covering that light going into that hemisphere, and then you're doing the other eye, it's kind of like that probe thing that I was telling you about.
Right.
It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we're kind of processing whatever it was that that was making you,
Now, why can't I just close one eye and just blink back and forth?
You can, but the key is like, if you do it that way, you might get light into the eye.
Got it.
The key is to make sure that there's no light going into the eye that you're covering.
When we did we did a quick little session at jiu-jitsu, and then we did a more in-depth session. When we did, I think it was the first initial one, you had given me some breathing techniques, which was like up, down, left, right. Explain that breathing technique, because that was very helpful. Even like when I was doing CrossFit, I would just kind of in between sets just quickly do it, or if I felt overstimulated at work or whatever it was, I would quickly kind of just go like, right? So what explain the breathing technique and what is it doing?
So I learned that technique through somebody called Sean. God, what's his last name? Sean. I can't recall his last name. But he has a technique called Square One. It's a great technique. It's a phenomenal technique. So my understanding of it, at least the way that I like to think it works, is that when you're moving your head, you're activating your vestibular system, okay? And your vestibular system helps regulate the muscle tone in your body. And when you're breathing through your nose, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. And when you're doing that with the head tilts, the vestibular movements, all of a sudden, I think we were doing that maybe for like some mobility issues.
Yeah. Yep.
And those mobility issues were opening up. So that process, that's basically what that process was, is this, activating your vestibular system and activating your parasympathetic nervous system. At least that's my understanding of it. Again, it's a technique that's, it's a great technique. It's Sean something, Square One. I mean, I think your followers will love to, check him out.
Yeah, kind of loosen things up a little bit.
Yep.
Right. Could you do like this type of work in like a group setting? I think about like breath work that I've done.
Yeah.
And breath work is definitely one of the more powerful experiences that I had on multitude of levels. I mean, the first time I did breath work, I did with two other guys. One guy started laughing, one guy started crying, and my leg went up and started doing this, like I was riding a bicycle.
That's weird.
It's like I was riding a bicycle, and I knew I was doing it, but I didn't want to stop. And then I got into my hands, like, which is very common, like you get like lobster claw from the breath work. My hands started clenching, and my whole body was like in like berserker mode.
That's crazy.
It was wild. And the guy who facilitated the breath work was like, you look like you were like Wolverine, like completely hulking out.
Wow.
And I felt what came up for me in that moment was, if I could just go run and scream right now, I would. Like my family was sleeping in the house, but I was like, if I can go run and just fucking like rage right now, I 100% would have. It was amazing. And then we've done breath work here, and you know, the energy and just the feelings that come up through breath work is unbelievable. And it's so crazy that you're just breathing and you're just so focused and grounded in the breath. And it really does open up so much internal portals and avenues and exploration. It's really unbelievable.
It is. It really is. Now, were you guys breathing, were you guys covering one nostril and then covering the other nostril?
For which one?
For the
When I went berserk?
Yeah.
No, it was just a normal just breath work session.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was wild, man. It was really it was different. It was the first time I had ever done it. And there's always that governor on your own mind of when you're doing things. Any exploratory adventure you go on, whether it be this or whether it be breath work or sensory deprivation, to me, when I first do it, there's this reservation that's sitting there, right? It's like, I don't want to get, but for some reason, like all bets were off, and it was off to the races. So
I would love to have been there and experience that.
it was wild, dude. It was really wild. It was uncomfortable at first, and then one guy just starts laughing, one guy starts crying, and there's such like that governor or that reservation that you have like quickly just dissipates in the moment.
There is so much that we don't understand, about the human body. There's just so much that we don't understand. I can only imagine how difficult this must be for a practitioner that practices to explain what exactly happened to you.
Right.
There's so much that we don't understand. It kind of makes me think about this again. We're going back 20 years ago, like I mentioned to you earlier, as I started learning all of these different techniques, and I started learning about meridians and chakras and auras and all this stuff. And to be honest with you, I was just like, what is this mumbo jumbo? I was like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. But, I was just like, you know what? Let me learn a little about this. Let me try it out. Let me test it. And I remember I had a client that came in who had asthma, chronic asthma, and really, really bad asthma. And I did some of this new stuff that I was learning, this meridian stuff. And all of a sudden, he just started crying, like just wailing, a grown man, just like crying and crying for no reason. We weren't talking. I was just literally just working on him. There was no conversation happening. And I think like 2 or 3 days later, he called me up and he said to me, my wife thought I was dead last night. And I was like, what do you mean? And that I was so quiet in my sleep that I wasn't snoring. I didn't wake up to use my inhaler, nothing like that. And that's when I was just like, oh my God, there's so much about the body that we just don't understand. Like, how can I explain? Like, yeah, I cleared some of your meridians and I cleared, a chakra. How do you explain that? Like, how do you explain what actually happened? Till this day, I'm still blown away by that type of experience. I was the first person to tell you when somebody would come up to me, oh yeah, acupuncture or like meridians. I was like, oh, that's all mumbo jumbo stuff, until I actually started studying it and practicing some of it. And I was taken aback. I was the biggest critic, and I was taken aback.
Yeah, unfortunately, you get some bad actors in those worlds, right? You get into the woo-woo, ethereal chakra world, and And listen, I'm a huge proponent of all that stuff. I love the woo woo. Like if we're going down a woo woo rabbit hole, I'm all about it. Let's go. But you do get bad players and bad actors in those worlds and in those arenas, and it becomes very like, it becomes just very like self-serving and this and that. But there is something to be said about, clearing up these different, let's call them portals, right? These different energetic portals and frequencies of the body that, although you can't put your finger on it, we feel it. Like there's this thing about, the third eye or, the chest, like all of these things that you experience. Again, you can't put a thing on it, right? But yet we all, humanistically, we all experience it one way or the other, whether it be extreme and it's like, whoa, it's definitely there and I sign up for that, or it's just kind of like, oh, that's bullshit. There's something there that's happening to all of us that we can't explain, but we all know it.
It reminds me of my brother-in-law. My sister and my brother-in-law are physicians. And my brother-in-law is a cardiologist, and I worked on him, and he's the biggest critic, okay? I worked on him, and he felt a lot better. And he looked at me, and his only response was just like, well, there's a lot about the body that we just don't know.
Is it the body or the mind?
Both, I guess.
Yeah, because how much of this is potential placebo?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, listen, if it's placebo, by all means, great.
But that's the other part of it, right? The placebo is real. So even if the placebo is real and it's still a placebo, it's still an effective way of going about it, right? Obviously, when you're touching someone's ear and you help them with their asthma or they let out a release of trauma, there's something that's actually happening there, right? That's less placebo than probably most things.
Yes.
But in regards to the energetic release of a chakra or any of that stuff, is it just your mind creating that reality of now this is freeing and it's loose, or is there actually something happening, or is it one or the other, a combination of both?
I personally like to think that there's actually something happening. I've had numerous cases that people come to see me and they'll say to me, I don't believe in this stuff, whatever, my wife just told me to come here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And I tell them straight up, I was like, you don't have to believe in anything. I was like, it's going to work, So we do it, we work on them, and I ask them, how do you feel? Let's quickly talk about that type of experience for trauma.
Sure.
I'll have somebody come to me and, we'll process the trauma. And in order to process the trauma, I'll have the person think about the traumatic experience. And they'll think about it for about 2 to 3 minutes while I do these techniques. And within those 2 to 3 minutes, what normally happens is, I would say 9 out of 10 people, that image starts to dissipate. And it's kind of what my clients say to me is kind of feels like there's smoke and mirrors like behind it. Like they can't really see it. Like they're trying to see it, but they're having a hard time grasping it. 1 out of 10 people can still see it, but they see it now as an outsider.
Whoa.
Now, what I've had many times people say to me, like, yeah, I can't see it anymore, but I think I can't see it anymore because you asked me to focus on it for 2-3 minutes. So I'll tell them, okay, no worries. I was just like, how do you feel right now? She was like, oh, I feel fine. I feel at peace with it, whatever. I'll follow up with them, 2-3 days later, and I'll purposely ask them. I'm like, so how was that event that we worked on? Can you see it? And they'll say to me, no, I can't see it. This fucking thing is weird, but I can't see it.
Right.
So I think many times people think it's placebo in a sense of like, oh, you just made me think about this for 2-3 minutes and now I'm having a hard time thinking about it. When in reality is that we process the trauma.
But would it be well, I guess it's the opposite, right? When you say don't think of the purple elephant or the pink elephant, then all of a sudden you start thinking about it. So it would be the reverse of that, of think of this heavily, and then you might not be able to think of it. How many people do you think are tied to that trauma in their identity?
Oh my God, tons.
Right?
Tons. I've had people.
It's the story they tell themselves in the world, right? Yeah.
And it's kind of sad in a way. Because, let's say somebody loses a loved one and they want to continue suffering because it's their way of honoring them. and I'll process other traumas for them. Like I specifically remember one client that I processed some traumas for her, and she had just lost her mother. And I wouldn't say probably like a few years prior had lost her mother. And her daughter told me, it was like, hey, can you please process that trauma for her as well? Because she's always upset about it. And I asked her, I was like, okay, do you want to work that? And she said no. She was like, she doesn't want to forget. It's not that you forget, you just become at peace with it. And she just wanted to continue suffering the pain of, the loss of her mother.
Yeah. That's hard though, because I can understand that pain is unfortunately the tie, right? It's like the tether that you're still connected to this person.
And that's quite common. That is very common, that sometimes people don't want to process certain traumas because it's their way of honoring that event or that person or that part of their life.
It's how you it's made you who you are in this moment, in good, bad, or indifferent, right? And I think a big part of that is just coming to peace with who you are, right? Yeah. Which is hard, right? It's hard to get to a place to realize that everything. I just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Great movie. Combination of like two of my favorite things, which is like quantum physics and kung fu.
Yeah.
Like this is a perfect movie. But there is this realization that I think we all don't have to come to, but you get to, if you're blessed enough to go down those rabbit holes, you get to a point where you realize that every single thing, every moment, every good, bad, or indifferent has led you to where you are now.
Absolutely.
And that is such a hard idea to wrap your brain around when that's tied up in death or despair or trauma or abuse, to realize that but the healthier people, you think about like people who've been through the AA system, right? The ones that really carry that with them, right? Carry the alcoholism with them. They identify still as alcoholics. They've accepted the identity that they've come to.
Of course.
And that's really hard to do for anybody, but now add in layers of trauma or despair, that's a really rough experience.
That is 100% right.
With what has been the most extreme, like you mentioned a lot of clients and a lot of amazing results. What is one that, I mean, you listed a bunch, but is there one that stands out to you as like the pinnacle of your experience? You could say like, this is my pride and joy moment of doing this work. So
there's one that really stands out for that a lot of New Yorkers can relate to. Was this man comes to see me, and he was probably in his early to mid 60s, big guy, like really big dude. We're going back now maybe 10 years ago or so, and his wife had recommended him to come see me. And he comes in. I had no idea what his issue was, nothing like that. This big dude walks into my office. And I asked him, I was like, so what do you here? And he's like, well, my wife told me I need to come here. This is probably around, God, I think maybe it was around August or something of that year. And he says to me, I think he said about anywhere between 12 and 15 friends on 9/11. And he said to me that, he owns a security company. And that he was driving his kid. I think he had just dropped off his kid at school, at preschool or whatever it may be. He was going down right by where St. Vincent's was. And he sees all of a sudden, all the traffic's backed up. You could see, down to the World Trade Center. And he had a NYPD vest in his trunk. So he goes and he has all those, the two, well, I don't know what they're called, to kind of guide traffic. He's trying to open up traffic in case ambulances wanted to come. So he puts the vest on, and he's trying to open up traffic so that ambulance can get to the hospital. And he sees this fire truck come by. And in that fire truck is his oldest son, best friend. And he's waving at him. So they're both waving at each other. That's the last time he sees him. And he tells me he lost all of these friends because, he had this like super high-end, security company. I'm sure some of these, cops on, when they're not working, they will go for him. So he lost all of these friends in fire. He was, he knew all these people on the job.
Sure.
And he then went to help with search and recovery. And while he was at search and recovery, he's telling me, and let me backtrack a little bit. While he's explaining this story to me, actually before he even told me the story, he said to me, and this scared the crap out of me. I'm a black belt now, but I was like a blue belt back then. He scared the crap out of me. He said to me, and this is a big dude. He says to me, he was just like, my office is full of holes from punching the walls. He says the closer it gets to September, every year, the more angry he gets. And that he starts punching the walls, and that his wife is just like, she just doesn't know what to do. So he's telling me this story, and he's sitting down, and he is crying and shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, did I bite off too much that I can't chew? This is a big deal. Like this guy is a dangerous dude,
Right.
He's like having a breakdown right in front of me. And so I just said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the technique. I'm going to do what I do. I started processing the trauma. And then within 4 or 5 minutes, the shaking stopped, the crying stopped, and it was a sense of neutrality. And I followed up with him throughout the years, and I asked him, how are you doing? How are you feeling? He gave me a great testimonial. And he was just like, I feel like at peace. I feel okay. And his wife contacted me and saying, was like, oh my God, thank you for giving me my husband back.
Wow.
So I think that's probably the one that really, really resonates, especially for New Yorkers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, dude. That's, and in that moment, you could definitely step into that space of like, what did I do here? Right? Because you don't know what you're unearthing on people.
Exactly.
Like,
and the trauma that all of that, like I said, he lost all these friends. He's seeing, his brother, his son's best friend, whatever, waving goodbye. But I think the one that really got to him was that when he was doing search and recovery, he saw a firefighter holding on to a boot of another firefighter with a leg dangling from it. And while he's telling me, he's just shaking and crying and shaking and crying. It was just really sad.
yeah, first responders definitely don't have enough outlets to process what they go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, you have clients that come in, I'm sure, and it's a 1, 2, maybe 5. I mean, I don't know the number of traumas that people have. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I'm sure they, like I said, the guy going down the stairs with his kid on his shoulders is creating a traumatic experience. But, as a first responder and a dad who's a veteran and a dad who's a retired cop, the stories that he has shared with me, you have to stop and think, like, how is a human being supposed to process this? How do you even begin to understand? And you see it with the news now. I mean, obviously having social media and having the exposure to everything that's going on in the world all at once, right? It's almost like we're not built to process these traumas and these experiences where we're seeing murder or we're seeing assassination or whatever we're seeing. We're not meant to be seeing that and exposed to it. It's such a massive scale. It's one thing if you're there, that's a whole different ball of wax, but now you're seeing all of these things, through a screen, through light, and our brains and our bodies don't know how to process it.
I couldn't have said it better. I mean, you're spot on. You're spot on.
Yeah. You mentioned New York, and places have energy to them, right? There's morphic resonance, right? There's like places, Rupert Sheldrake has the, a prison cell feels different than a baby's bedroom. And living outside, right outside New York, we're 15 minutes from the city, probably by time, and then distance is, and traffic's a different story. But that energy emanates, right? That energy seeps out of the city, and you feel it more on that Monday through Friday, driving through Pelham. You feel the people going to the train, the hustle and bustle. How much does atmosphere, and you talked about it a little bit in the beginning, how much does like environment play a role in this?
In what?
In just like the storage and the energy and the trauma and kind of it all just kind of coming into play.
I think it plays a big role. And, I know I'm telling all these stories, but I think this is a great way for your listeners to kind of understand how this works. Is I was working on I was muscle testing. I was working on a client, and everything was showing up strong. It was like, he's feeling better. Everything feels great. His wife walked in and they were about to get divorced. And while she was in the room, everything started testing weak and his pain started to come back. So just the presence of his wife was enough for his pain to start to come back.
Wow. Yeah, it makes sense though. I mean, it makes sense because think about like the energetic frequency you get off of people, good, bad, or indifferent, right? You start to pick up on that like that energetic. There's a real energetic transmission of that's happening, and again, it goes back to that kind of you can't touch it, right? But you can kind of measure it though, right? Like, what do you use to other than your actual practice? What do you like? Are there anything you could use to measure the energetic MRIs or anything like that you could kind of put on paper?
I think they have done some type of test. Like I know in Japan they did some type of MRIs to see energy in a way. I don't know. I don't remember the type of MRI it was or what type of scan. It might have not even been an MRI.
Right.
Some type of scan,
brainwave scan type of thing. Yeah.
But I don't know anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Because there is something that like the energetic level that someone gives you, good, like I said, good, bad, or indifferent, it can change everything.
Yeah, you could walk into a room and be like, oh my God, that person drains me. And they might have not even said a word.
Right. Energetic vampires. Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
You got to keep them at it's so important though. It's so important and it's impossible to just like, I'm not going to be around anybody that's negative or that's going to drain me. It's utterly impossible. But then what do you do to mitigate that? What do you do to offset that as a person to say, all right, I know I have to be exposed to this person at this event or at work or wherever it is. What do I do to navigate that and not have my eye twitch and my nose bleed?
Okay. So I don't want to get too woo-woo.
Let's get woo-woo-y. Let's go woo-woo-y.
So
the house of woo-woo. Here we go. We got Wu-Tang everywhere here. We got like,
it's not too woo-woo. But first of all, listen, if you have somebody, let's say you're going to see your doctor or whatever, and that person, you walk in there and he's just giving you a bad vibe, just find another doctor.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody that you have to go and work with, one of the things that you can try, again, we're getting a little woo-woo.
Let's do it.
Is you have something called your central meridian, okay? And in theory, what they say is like, if that central meridian is open, okay, you're kind of inviting all of these type of energies into your space, into you. So one way that you can, quote unquote, mitigate that is basically you take your hand. And you don't have to physically touch yourself, but you bring it to your bottom lip and you bring it down once and then you bring it up about 3 or 4 times. And that basically is closing up that central meridian.
Are you touching your mouth?
You don't have to touch it. You could just be right over it all the way down to your groin once and then you close it up. You close it up about 3 to 4 times and that's it. So right before going in to see that person, you can try that. Now, another thing that you can try is, where are the glasses that I let you guys put on? There they are. So these guys.
I want to get into the glasses stuff,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So these guys are pretty amazing. And so, now, if you have somebody that, let's say you're going to get on a phone call, or you're going to go meet somebody that stresses you out, these lenses, I think the lens is called a Florian lens, I think it is. And it basically, remember how we were talking earlier about the getting the hemispheres to communicate? This basically gets the hemispheres to communicate a little bit smoother. So if you're going to have a bad phone call, or if you're going to meet with somebody that stresses you out, these may help out.
Now, when you say gets them to communicate smoother, is that just giving you a more balanced approach to it? Is that giving you an opportunity to communicate better? Or how is that expressed in like the actual interaction with the person?
So again, remember, we spoke about how the eyes are an extension to the brain. Okay. So when light goes through these lenses, okay, it basically sends these waves that gets the hemispheres to communicate a little bit better. So by doing so, all of a sudden that person that would normally piss you off or get you angry, you're at a more like toned down version of yourself. You're able to kind of just mitigate it a little bit smoother. So I've had, now it's not for everybody. I've had a few clients that, they'll buy them and they'll say to them, oh my God, these are great. Like they completely, the moment they put them on, it depends on how sensitive they are. The moment they put them on, they're like, oh my God, I just feel like, just relaxed. Just, completely chilled. Those other people that will put them on, they're not as sensitive as those other ones. They'll put them on and like, wow, I feel no difference. Like whatever, like they feel nothing. So I think it depends on how sensitive your nervous system is to begin with.
And again, you could just chalk that up as like, yeah, okay, it's just glasses, it's just the lens. But then when you go through what we went through, which I want to dive into, there is this, the light coming through these different prisms, which now kind of, it relaxes the mind and the eyes, right? It's relaxing the whole kind of third eye vibe up here. And it kind of just allows it to kind of just chill out the fuck out, right? Before we get into the glasses, I want to ask you, how much does diet come into play? Because we talked about atmosphere, we talked about traumas, but then what about like what you're actually consuming, like eating wise? Does that have any effect in regards to, the relationship between yourself and the energy, yourself and the meridians, or any of that?
I think it does. Now, that's not something that I specialize in, so I wouldn't be doing justice to talk about it because it's not really my specialty.
Yeah. I imagine it has to. I mean, think about how important diet is and what we're seeing now, and you could say like red 5, yellow 5, red this or that, like all of that is having an effect on you as a person.
Absolutely.
So if it's having an effect on you as a person, to me, you eat a good meal, you feel healthier. You eat a fucking bowl of pasta, you feel lethargic. Like those all, if you're talking about human optimization and you're looking to live a less stressful life, right, then doing more of eating healthier, working out, like that all lends itself to that, obviously. But then obviously this also kind of supports that in a different level.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I want to get into the glasses. So we did the first initial, we'll call it consultation at the academy. You put these pads on my feet. You had me do some breathing, check my neck. But then we did an actual formal session.
Yeah.
And you brought some of the glasses and they have these different colors. So I want you to kind of discuss what they are, how they come into a play. And then obviously we can kind of dive into, you see Bono wearing blue glasses. You see all these, celebrities and stuff wearing these different lenses and different colors. Is that actually for a reason or is that just for style? Like, so what's with the glasses?
So I use these to process internal conflict. So an internal conflict isn't necessarily a trauma. It means, let's say you're, you're thinking about buying a house or leaving your girlfriend or whatever. It's nothing traumatic. It's a decision that you're having a hard time with. So I'll use that for that. Now, the way that the glasses work is that every color has a different frequency. Now, when we put these on our eyes, these frequencies, these colors, okay, will go, again, your eyes are an extension to your brain, will go through your eyes and reach the limbic system. So let's say today you're having a hard time dealing with, you have some type of internal conflict. We start going through these colors. All of a sudden, let's say the color green makes the problem worse. And then the blue, like, hey, the blue, I feel calm. Like it just feels like the problem isn't that big of a deal. So that's for today. Now, tomorrow, it could be, you could put the blue on and the blue can make this new problem that you have worse. So it just really depends. It's like you're peeling layers. So just because the blue is good for you today does not mean that it's going to be good for you tomorrow.
And what's actually happening? Like what's actually happening like with the blue or with the different colors?
So again,
like when we did this, sorry, I cut you off, but when we did this, you're like, oh, try these on, try these. And there was this feeling of like the shoulders dropping or just feeling a little bit more subdued and a little bit more like, all right, like I feel like even just having these on right now, it just feels a little bit more like, all right.
Yeah. So those that you're wearing, those and these right here, these aqua ones, try those on. And I want you actually, before you even put those on, I don't know if we're able to do this or not, but check your neck range of motion before putting those on.
All right.
So, check your neck rotation. Check how far you could turn.
All right.
Check the other side. Okay. And now put those on. It's either those or the other ones, but we'll start with those. Put those on. And now we check your neck range of motion and tell me how it is now.
I feel similar.
Okay, try these on. Let's say these.
It's going to be a whole process now. We're going to process some trauma.
Well, let's just.
These actually make me feel better. Like, I don't know why. It just feels lighter. I would say slightly, especially going this way. It feels like my chin can get further to my shoulder than before.
A little bit more range.
Yeah.
So, for those of you guys that are listening to this podcast, let's say you've got a little bit of neck pain or whatever it may be, you could buy yourself like a pair of aqua glasses, okay? Like a light blue glasses. And you could do this at home. I mean, the glasses are going to cost you like $5.
Yeah.
You can see how the aqua glasses temporarily will improve your postural alignment. And when you improve your postural alignment, you'll get a little bit more range of motion in your neck and other parts of your body.
And now what about some of the other colors that you have on the table here? Like, what are they processing otherwise? Are certain things, like you said, the aqua blue is for like the neck and posture. What other colors represent what?
Oh, I mean, you do have your traditional, red will kind of energize, blue is calming, purple could be calming. Those are your traditional, what people find can help. But you will also find that you'll have somebody put on the red ones, and that's usually energizing. What one would think, they could find it extremely calming. It just really depends on this person's.
And does that notify you of something that needs to, or is it just kind of like the person?
It just depends on their nervous system. Doesn't really tell me much. Just, for today, they may just need the red ones. For tomorrow, they may need.
Would you recommend people just walk around with like Bono wears the blue ones? I don't know if that's like
I had a client that bought a whole set of these. And he uses them, depending on, he tries them on
in the morning,
to see which ones make him feel better that day. And then he just walks around for a little bit with it. And it's enough to calm him down throughout the day.
It's so crazy because it makes sense, right? It really does make sense in the fact that, the colors of it would kind of dictate the internal system, right? Like why wouldn't it?
Well, the thing is, again, the light is entering that lens, and that frequency is going in towards to your brain, and it's stimulating the limbic system. So if it's the color that your brain needs at that moment,
The color your brain needs at that moment.
because it could change. I remember when we were working, at one point you're like, oh, I really like these. And then we kept on, going through different ones. And the one that you really liked, all of a sudden, like, I don't like,
Yes.
I don't like it that much anymore.
Right.
It's because we're kind of like peeling an onion. We're processing that internal conflict. And then eventually, from what I recall, that internal conflict that we worked on with you, you're like,
Right.
it's not that big of a deal anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that, and it makes sense that the light or the light going through the color would adjust the internal state.
Well, it's, I have videos of one of my colleagues in Argentina working with, he donates his time working with people that are blind, and he was experimenting with the lenses. And remember how I mentioned to you about how the aqua glasses can correct postural alignment? And this is somebody that is completely blind. You put on the aqua glasses and you could visually see in the video how immediately the postural tilts will correct itself. It's because it's not about the vision. It's not about actually the vision. It's about the frequency going into the brain and stimulating certain aspects of the brain, not necessarily just the visual cortex.
Look at me taking vision for granted, huh?
Yeah. So it
happens on a different plane
Yes.
than actual vision. It's actually happening. We just happen to be blessed with vision that we could say, okay, well, we're attributing it to vision.
Yeah.
But it's actually happening
Absolutely.
on a completely different reality
It
plane.
has nothing to do with vision. It's about stimulating certain parts of your brain.
Have you ever seen, I mean, we talked about studies, but have you ever seen like what parts of the brain are lighting up at what point? Like that would be interesting.
Yeah, I would be open to doing this with some type of functional MRI and to see what happens when depending on what color is going in.
That would be so cool.
I know that they have done studies of EMDR. That I do know.
Yeah.
That they have done functional MRIs. And again, EMDR is about getting those hemispheres to communicate. And they'll show MRIs of how when somebody's experienced a traumatic event and they're recalling that event, how one hemisphere lights up. And then once it's processed, how it's kind of just like it starts transferring over to the other side.
Does it fully transport or does it just kind of like disperse a little bit?
I think maybe kind of some of it transfers.
Like dilutes it a little bit.
Exactly.
It's less concentrated.
Exactly.
Yeah. And is this something you could do on your own? Like, could you, I mean, I guess you could process your own trauma, but, how would you, is that just acceptance? Is that just,
do the eye thing that I showed you.
Okay.
So I urge you, if whoever is listening to this, try that out. Now, you may get to a point that first, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about whatever it is that's upsetting you, okay, and put an image to that. And what I want you to do from there is I want you to rate it from 1 to 10. How much does it bother you? So you're going to say, when I think of this, it bothers me at a 10, meaning it's at the highest or whatever, an 8 or whatever area. And then I want you to think to yourself, okay, when I'm thinking about this, where am I feeling this in my body? And, maybe you're feeling your heart palpitating or, or your shortness of breath or whatever it may be. And then I want you to do that whole covering one eye, the other eye, one eye, the other eye. Try for about maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Okay. That might even be too much. And don't be surprised if that 10 all of a sudden drops to like maybe a 6 or a 4. Okay. Now, sometimes this technique may not work 100% of the time. Okay. Sometimes there's other things that you need to do in order to get your body in a state that this technique can work. So this, eye covering stuff that we're talking about, this is how I process traumas online when I see clients. Like I'll see clients in Europe, I'll see clients in South America, cross country, I'll see clients all over the world. And this is how I process their traumas. Now, again, there are sometimes that maybe they'll take that 10 and they'll bring it to a 5 and they kind of get stuck there. And that's when, it gets a little bit more complicated. There's certain other things that I need to do in order to kind of unstick it and then keep bringing it down to a 1 or 0. So, but for those out there that just want to, hey, let me just try this out, just, do it like I just mentioned to you. Make sure there's no light going into the eye, though.
We've used the word trauma a lot in the conversation. Where does anxiety fit into all this? Because anxiety is a word that gets thrown around like it's everybody, and we all experience it. It's definitely, obviously, very prevalent, especially in this culture currently. The waves of anxiety that we all experience. Where does anxiety fit into this, and how do you kind of replace anxiety with trauma? Trauma with anxiety? Is one a byproduct of the other?
So my understanding of it is that pretty much all of anxiety stems from trauma. I think it just boils down to that. Because, again, just because you're not constantly thinking about what has happened to you. And again, what is traumatic for you may not be traumatic for me.
Right.
So I'll have people come to see me and they'll say, oh, I had a great childhood. I had a great life. Everything's great. I've had some little things, but nothing big, nothing like what we're talking about here on the podcast. So, but for them, it was traumatic. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think sometimes people, because there's so much, like you said, you can look online and you see all these, beheadings, all this crazy, stuff that's going on in the world, kids being killed and all this. And then when you look at internally what's going on with you, like, oh, that's nothing. Like,
right.
That person really has trauma. I'm fine. But your nervous system, your brain has registered that as traumatic, even though, consciously you're saying to yourself, oh, that's not really a big deal, because you're comparing yourself to other things that you're seeing other people experience.
Yeah, it makes sense because, again, kind of going back to that parental aspect of it and that lens of being a parent, you kind of don't know what's truly happening, like behind the curtains, right? Like, and for me, like with the sensory deprivation tank, that was a big part of it. Was before I initially went in there, my thought was, I'm afraid of what I'm going to think. And then my rebuttal to that was, well, you're thinking it either way. So you're better off interfacing with it and having a dialogue with it and facing it head on. And then you could at least have a little bit more of an intellectual idea of what it actually is composed of versus it just being this lingering fear that's in the back of your mind that's omnipresent and is going to express itself in a multitude of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the mind and like all of it, the body and the mind connection is just it's so tangible, yet it's so like ethereal,
It's a lot about the mind and body that we don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because we dismiss one or the other. At least I do. It's like you either feel good or you don't feel good, or your body feels good or it doesn't feel so good, or your mind feels good or it doesn't feel good. And although we know that they're connected, it's hard when it's not when it's on that emotional level and it's on that like energetic level, because then it becomes like the woo woo.
Yeah.
And then we dismiss it as like, fuck that shit.
Yeah.
Especially as men.
Of course.
Right? Especially as men, where we suppress a lot of that emotion.
And even more of a reason why men need to find that type of help.
Yeah.
Even more of a reason why.
Or else you're putting holes in your office wall.
Yeah. Listen, that was scary, bro.
Yeah.
That was scary. I was just like, oh my God, I don't know if
what'd I do?
I was like, what'd I do? I was like, I shouldn't have let this guy in.
But it's important. You just go back to the fundamentals.
That's all I did.
Let's get back to the fundamentals.
That's all I did. So that was definitely the and I tell that story all the time because I was literally scared. I was like, yo, this guy could literally pick me up with one arm and just tossed me across the room.
Yeah. But you helped him.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Dude, I wanted to get into these things, but I feel like I know we're coming up on both of our bedtimes, but what's the story with, obviously you put the platelets in the bottom of my foot, but I want to kind of talk about this a little bit as well.
Yeah. So those are neurostabs.
Okay.
What they are is they basically, they send a frequency through your body, and they basically help with the weight distribution of your body. So I'll have somebody come in, and remember what we were talking about, I check the sensory system.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if the information coming from your feet, from let's say wearing, not great footwear or footwear that has a lot of padding or lacks a lot of mobility, your brain isn't receiving the right information going up saying, hey, this is what I'm standing on. This is the balance, this is where I am in space. So that basically helps mitigate that, helps kind of get your body to understand where it is, where it's standing in space.
That makes sense. It's funny because, using that terminology when you said it that day, it really opened up a lot of thoughts and ideas for myself. And then I think we actually just spoke a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago, what it was. And I said at that time, I felt like I was an astronaut floating in space with no tether, right? And I think that it takes a lot to find that tether, right? As a human being, that tether can come in multitude of ways, but the authentic tether that pulls you back and keeps you grounded in space can come up in different things. But I think it's important to dive into these things and explore yourself and explore the traumas, whatever they may be, for yourself, because in a way, it is the ultimate form of human optimization, is understanding yourself on all these different levels and all these different planes, especially when it becomes to emotional.
So I do have something for your listeners to try out.
Okay.
If they're experiencing some pain right now,
Sure.
Some low back pain or some neck pain or some shoulder.
I live in that pain space.
So this is what I want them to try.
Okay.
Again, no harm, no foul. If it doesn't work, we're gonna try it out.
Sorry.
What you're gonna do is you're going to massage your jaw really firm. Okay. All through here, you're going to massage your temple, and you're going to massage the base of your skull, okay? And I see, before you even do that, check your range of motion. Let's say you have shoulder pain. Hey, check your range of motion in your shoulder. Or if you're having back pain, go ahead and go down to touch your toe, see how far you can get down. Then once you've established where you are, what's going on, where the pain starts or where your range of motion is, then you're going to do that whole massaging of the jaw, the temple, the base of the skull. Then what I want you to do is you're going to take a fork. Okay. You're going to take a fork and you're going to take your socks off, and all you're going to do is just going to scrape the bottom of your foot. Okay. And what that's doing is basically just waking up those skin receptors. Remember how we talk about like knowing where your body is in space? So it's basically just waking up those skin receptors so that your brain can start feeling, okay, this is the information I'm getting. This is where I am in space. So you're going to go ahead and scrape the bottom of your feet, maybe 2-3 minutes each one. Okay. And then you're going to do a simple little eye exercise. And, that eye exercise is basically you're just going to look at your finger, and then you're going to look at the distance. Look at the finger, look at the distance. You do that maybe 10 repetitions. Then what I want you to do, recheck your range of motion. The whole thing should take less than 5 minutes. Recheck your range of motion, recheck your pain levels, and then let Vinny know if it made it better.
Is the fork the same thing as that red ball that you gave me?
Yes.
That now has a smiley face because my son drew on it. Yep. Yeah, that was weird because you were like putting it against my foot, and at first my foot's like, oh, I can't handle this, and all of a sudden I got used to it, and it was like, oh, it's like settled into the feeling. It was almost like a massage ball, but like soft spikes on it.
Yes, long spikes on it. They were actually pretty hard spikes.
Yeah, but they feel like it tickled a little bit, but then it didn't tickle, and then it was like...
Yeah, normal for it to start tickling in the beginning, but you need to do it until it doesn't feel ticklish anymore. That's when you know you can stop.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So yeah, if anybody out there is dealing with some neck or back pain, try it out. I mean, listen.
But you could also attribute to like the physical, right? Like that's the kind of crazy part about it is like, I could say like, no, but I herniated a disc and it's showing up. That's the part of it that's kind of crazy is that like I herniated a disc and it's showing up. It's like, there's your herniated disc right there. Here's the protocol of, cortisone shot and, PT and, for some people back surgery and stuff. And what you're doing is, and I said it was like the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, and I felt it coming. I was like, I'm a little tight right now. But what you're doing is like taking that physical expression of it, right? It's going to the root of the tree, right? Not like trimming the branches of the leaves, right? And it's the body keeps the score, right? Yep. The body expresses the trauma, the experience, whatever it is, in some way, shape, or form. And you would think that, oh no, I did this thing and I hurt my back. Yes. And there's this other part to it.
Exactly. Everything that led up to that. So the thing is like, Vinny, if we go to Times Square right now and we take an MRI of everybody in Times Square right now, we will find a ton of people with herniated discs, all messed up backs, but zero symptoms. So just because you have a herniated disc does not mean that you're going to be symptomatic. So people a lot of times say, oh, look, I've got this disc, I got this. I've had so many people come to see me because I have this herniation, I have this, that, this bulging here, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, okay. Like that doesn't mean that you have to be symptomatic. Maybe those herniated discs have nothing to do with your back pain. Again, you will find a ton of people with herniated disc and zero pain. They don't even know that they have herniated discs.
Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy stuff. Dude, I'm so glad we had a chance to do this. Because I could just attest to what you have done for me in this short interaction, just the conversations. And again, for someone who values self-exploration and then also values people who passionately do what they love, those two worlds have come together because it allowed me to kind of assess my neurological experience, right? And to go, okay, I gotta focus on this stuff. And even though it's not an everyday practice for me, when I do remember to do those breathwork exercises or now some of these other implementations, it's just a little bit of like taking that edge off, just taking that edge off, like whatever it is, whether it be like after a CrossFit class or jiu-jitsu or, I'm just having a moment at work. I'm just like, I just need to, I'm just sitting there fucking doing it. People probably think I'm a weirdo, but you know what? If it takes a little bit of that edge off and it allows me to be in a little bit more of a harmonious internal state, you really can't ask for more than that. So thank you so much. Where can people connect with you if they want to find out, want to hear more about it, want to get your services and kind of do a whole session?
Sure. You can find me on recapwellness.com or recap_wellness on Instagram.
All right, perfect. Dude, thank you so much. This is awesome. Try his stuff, man. It definitely works.